President Putin gave a speech in Moscow and basically started it off. Obviously, the speech is concerning what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And basically started off by saying that this conflict doesn't involve just Russia. It has ramifications for the whole world. And it's the responsibility of the citizens, he feels responsibility to the citizens from 2014, when the conflict, he says, basically started. He goes over possibly old ground to some people, which was the area in the east of Ukraine, and I'll just call it the Donbass region, because it involves about 4 of these little areas, little provinces, little counties. And he said this basically started where this Donbass region wanted more autonomy from Ukraine, and they wanted to use that own language. This wasn't well accepted by the Ukrainian speakers in Kiev, and he says there was like a blockade of hate from them. He says over time and over a number of years, he says he's tried to solve this peaceably. He didn't, as far as I could tell, specifically refer to the Minsk agreements, Minsk I and Minsk II. But what he did do is he referred to the Normandy Agreement, which is in essence the same thing, which was like a guarantee, or France and Germany were supposed to be guarantors of the Minsk Agreement. He states that behind Russia's backs, the EU leaders, he didn't mention them specifically, but it's France and Germany that he's stating were basically just wasting time and had no intention to carry out, enforce, and try and get a working agreement out of the Minsk agreements. He basically said that France and Germany prevaricated on this and went behind Russia's backs. Subsequently, over the last short while, ex-Chancellor Merkel, the German leader, has basically stated exactly the same thing that President Putin has just stated. So if you're wanting sort of something which sounds reasonably factual, then you've got ex-Chancellor Merkel agreeing with President Putin that the EU countries, in essence France and Germany, had no intention of carrying out Minsk agreements. He says during this time, this prevarication time, which lasted from like 2014 up to the back end of 2021, weapons were being supplied by Western countries. And I believe he mentioned the UK was one of them. He alluded that Ukraine had also asked for nuclear weapons. And when the USSR, this is a sidebar, when the USSR broke up in the 90s, there was nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And Ukraine said that it would give these up on the basis that it wasn't going to get attacked by either the EU or by Russia. Subsequently, the Ukraine gave up the nuclear weapons. This is back with what Putin was saying, sideball finish. He says that also the West went ahead and shamelessly has started opening bio labs in Ukraine. Said that this Normandy agreement that in essence France and Germany were supposed to enforce and try and bring to fruition, and they were just using it as a bluff. And he says, while people were getting killed, people were dying in the Donbass area. He says, while this was going on, and in these years, says there was also conflicts going on around the world that the West had a finger in the pie. And he mentioned Iraq, Libya, and Syria is where Western involvement is put into places that the Western countries have no no heritage in it, and they're just forcing themselves into it. Says the West is cheated on its own population, on its own people, by systematically disinforming them and having disinformation campaigns. He says that these so-called Western, so-called civilized countries, he says, have used aggression on a number of times. And he brought in the hippopotamus word. He says that basically the Western countries are hypocrites. To say that they're civilized, yet they act in some parts of the world in uncivilized ways. Once this Normandy agreement was in play, he says NATO, and have done for a number of years, they've consistently moved forward, ever eastward, closer and closer to Russian borders. The sidebar on that one was that when the USSR broke down and it became Russia, Gorbachev, the USSR president at the time, and Reagan, the US president, made an agreement that NATO would not move further east than eastern Germany. As everybody's well aware by now, that agreement was broken by who came after Reagan. Bush broke it, Clinton broke it, Bush Jr. broke it, Obama broke it. I would imagine that Trump broke it as well. And he's basically saying that Biden is breaking it by ever pushing closer to Russia. At the present time, in northern Norway, the Americans are building up and making like a bigger base in North Norway. Top end of Norway is borders on Russia. That's where Russia has is where its submarines and that are based up that area. Back to what Putin was saying, he says the US has peppered the world with military bases in every continent that they can get them on. He says there's hundreds of overseas American bases. He said that the US has previously, and it's news today, you see, is because the Russians have now pulled out of basically the last nuclear arms reduction agreement. It says, but the US has, over the years, pulled out of the medium-term nuclear weapons agreements. Over the years, he said, Russia has suggested various solutions at various times, and subsequently all of them have been turned down by the United States. Without going into the specifics, and I have no detailed knowledge on that, you'd have to look at it from the American side as to what was actually being offered. If what wasn't being offered they didn't think was right, then okay, they're going to turn it down. What he's saying is that there wasn't a reluctance on Russia's part. You'd have to do your own research on this one. This is a speech. It's not a detailed dossier. Says in 2014, this Donbass area was attacked by Ukraine. And this attack apparently was breaking one of the UN Security Council resolutions. I'm unsure of that one. I would need to go back and take a look at that. But I think basically it was alluding to, okay, this is the UN security, they've made this agreement. And one of the things which brought it into people's mind was a civilian aeroplane, I think Malaysian airliner, was downed in eastern Ukraine. There was a trial, I believe, held in absentia, i.e. that's the people who the court thought had done it weren't there to defend themselves. And this Malaysian airline was, I'm not too sure whether it was heading out of Schiphol across to Malaysia. But there was a couple of lads. There was a couple of lads from Newcastle on that plane, because Newcastle was I think playing some friendlies out in the forest, and for the rest of for the season, it had a time. I'm not too sure if it was 17 minutes in or 23 or something like that. I think maybe it was 17 minutes in. People at St James's clapped. So these things, these wars, which sometimes seem a far way away, sometimes they've got a habit of getting closer to home, ending up on your doorstep. Back to what Putin's saying,